Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today in the inaugural panel discussion series. My name is John, and I'll be your host, as well as the moderator for the panel discussion. In this session, we'll look at pertinent issues relative to the SMME market and the various factors that influence the sector, including COVID-19 and foreign macroeconomic circumstances that have direct influence on SMME growth, as well as its sustainability. Today, we have four industry leaders joining us today. We have Mr. Shaun Govender, CEO of the Business Place. Thank you for joining us, Shaun. Lunga Mjoda, SMME Services Coordinator for the Nelson Mandela Bay Business Chamber. Vuyokazi Zozi, Regional Manager for ECDC in Nelson Mandela Bay. And Jenny van der Walt, Area Client Manager for Nedbank, also in Nelson Mandela Bay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I would like to start by asking each of the panelists to please give a brief introduction and overview of their respective organizations, starting with Mr. Shaun Govender, the Business Place.
Hi, good morning, and thanks for joining us to the panelists and others watching this. My name is Shaun Govender. I'm the CEO of the Business Place, and basically the Business Place runs a group of SMME products and services to try and stimulate economic growth within all the sectors that we work in. And how we do this is basically we run centers. And these centers are walk-in centers that help entrepreneurs. So when you sort of need help and assistance and support, you walk into one of our centers, and we have a concept called navigators, where these consultants do an assessment on your business and understand what you basically need, and we provide the necessary services and support. Over the times that what we found in our business is that there's a lot of interventions and problems that are required, and then the group kind of grew using all the gaps in the SMME market that we found. So, for example, on the non-financial services side, we provide various accredited trainings, and then the Business Place invested into a company that basically has about 30 accreditations in the various different SMME categories and issues. What we also found in the business that a lot of entrepreneurs needed finance, and we tried to assist them with finance, but by facilitating finance through partnering with different development finance houses and commercial finance houses. We found the process to be too tedious and long, and we then embarked on a journey to try and find our own finance support, where we started our own fund, which is basically with the National Treasury Jobs Fund and private investors, which is Growth Point Properties and CFA and it's the other one, Sianda Gas. So this fund is run in-house. So when entrepreneurs come into the Business Place requires any funding support, we actually apply to the fund, which is regulated by the FSB and the National Credit Regulator. So there's an ICE investment committee that sits when necessary to approve applications, etc. So the business grew over time. What we found also is that in our sort of sector, if you compare us to various different countries, the type of SMMEs we're having now are very sort of, I may say, it's still junior, lack of a lot of literacy issues, lack of understanding, lack of business planning and support. If you compare us to other countries, I think we're still very far behind, and we're lagging in the SMME support side of things. And what we also found is that in our industry, we are all working in silos. So for an example, we have national institutions doing SMME support, for example, SEDA, CFA, NYDA, IDC, etc. And then on a provincial level, you get Gauteng Enterprise Propeller doing their own thing. In Cape Town, you've got Redjo doing their own thing. So all the different individual strategies are misaligned. And then you have local municipalities through their LEDs have their localized strategies as well. So what you find is a lack of cohesion and integration. So what we try to do at our centers recently, we're trying to do an ecosystem approach where we try and partner with all the like-minded institutions. So for example, in the Nelson Mandela Bay, we run 3 centers there. And our intentions are to try and partner with all the development corporations, the banks, and whoever, and the municipalities as well, to try and help us with literature, to come up with new ways of helping entrepreneurs and stuff like that. So the key intention in the Nelson Mandela Bay, or our core objective, is to develop an ecosystem and try and partner with like-minded institutions to make a seamless support system for entrepreneurs in the Nelson Mandela Bay. And I'll stop there for now, and then we can just further chat on the COVID issues. John?
Thank you, Shaun. Thank you, Shaun. Lunga, would you like to give us an overview of your organization and say a few words?
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you have just said, my name is Mjoda. I am the SMME Services Coordinator here at the Nelson Mandela Business Chamber. So what the Business Chamber is all about is basically a non-profit representative of a broad spectrum of businesses within Nelson Mandela Bay. It is basically, the aim is to create an enabling environment and also to drive and stimulate economic growth. So this is achieved through our SMME and Entrepreneurship Committee, our Trade and Investment Committee, as well as various task teams. Relevant to this discussion would be the SMME and Entrepreneurship Desk, which we recently launched on the 26th of April. So what it basically does, it pulls resources in one platform where businesses are able to benefit from those. The desk is sponsored by Standard Bank as well as LabourNet, and it has 6 pillars. Number one, what it would be the access to finance, where businesses are able to acquire a loan facility as well as get funding for purchase order contracts. And then we have skills development, which is basically a collection of our pro bono service providers such as LabourNet as well as eWatchdog, who provide business skills development workshops. We have access to markets. Pardon me, we have access to markets, and then we have business development, and then we have under business development we work with Vuyokazi here, for example, or with her organization, which is ECDC, where we have the enterprise development program as well as the EC exporter development program. So in a nutshell, that is who the Business Chamber is.
Thanks for the insight and letting us know what you guys are all about. Vuyo, are you there?
Yes, thank you, John. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vuyokazi Zozi from the organization called the Eastern Cape Development Corporation, ECDC. ECDC is basically a provincial economic development agency. We funded by DDIT, which is the Department of Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism. So ECDC is basically a provincial economic development agency. We're funded by the Department of Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism. And we're drawing our mandate directly from the Eastern Cape Development Act, which is the ECDC Act number 2 of 1997. And we are led by the economic development priorities of the provincial government, which is the Eastern Cape, as detailed in the PGDP, which is the Provincial Growth Development Plan, and also the Eastern Cape Provincial Industrial Development Strategy, which is the PIDS, as well as the policy statement, budget speech of the MEC for the same DDIT, the department, and we continue to make significant contribution towards the economic development of the province. And basically, we're focusing on 4 main development areas: the development finance for SMMEs, business support, which is the non-financial support and services that we offer to our SMMEs. And then we've got a unity that deals with property development. If you need space to operate from, or even if it's an office or you want to open a factory, then we do have that, even though then in the Nelson Mandela Bay, we don't have that property unit. We also have trade, investment and innovation unit. Perhaps I must mention that ECDC has got a fairly new leadership. Our board started last year around April, as well as our CEO that started around July, August last year. So they revised the strategic intent of ECDC, and I must say that our vision basically is to be a leader in facilitating inclusive, sustainable economic growth, and our mission is to promote and coordinate inclusive development, economic development through innovative and responsive SMME financing solutions, trade and invest promotion, SMME development and support, industry and sector opportunities development. Perhaps also of interest to this platform, I must mention what our strategic goals are as ECDC. We want to see a growing, diversified, inclusive and robust economy in the Eastern Cape, and also competitive and sustainable SMME sector that contributes to the socio-economic development of the province. And the last one is a sustainable ECDC that offers competitive products and services. That's all from our side. Thank you.
And Jenny, then perhaps we should move to you to get a bit of insight from your side.
Okay, sure. Let me just put my camera on there. There we go.
There we go.
You can see me. Okay, great.
Yep.
So I'm from Nedbank, area client manager. My division that I work in is small business and private banking. So everybody knows Nedbank is the green bank in the country, and what we do in the small business side is we obviously assist clients with financing options as well as advice around businesses. In the small business division, we deal with clients between startup businesses and turnovers up to 30 million rand a year. You then get obviously your different levels in your business. So we get business banking, who will deal with up to 102 million rand a year, and then you get to corporate and all that. But incorporated in small business, we've also got our private client division, which is your elite type of client, salaried or self-employed, as well as the medical professional space. So we also cater for the doctors, dentists, and any type of medical professional in the small business or the salary earner space. So again, we look at finance options for both the business and the individual in terms of business premises that you want to have financed, vehicles that you want to have financed, trucks, equipment that you want to have financed, as well as obviously banking you in your business capacity with a transactional account at Nedbank. All those kind of products is what we do. We also have our financial planner leg of the business, where we look at your personal financial planning. Do you have life cover in place? All those type of things. Personal insurance, business insurance. So a whole lot of different levers in Nedbank that can assist you with your business and your personal affairs. There's no need to go to different bankers or different branches if you want to talk about your business or your personal. We want to be as a one-stop shop as what we can. So if you've got a business manager, is what we call them, your business will go with that business manager all through the ranks, be it personal or business, and you'll always have a contact person. I think that's what makes Nedbank stand out, is that we want that face-to-face interaction. And I think more than ever after COVID, you want back that I want to speak to Jenny face-to-face in my business premises. Let us see what my business is doing to understand better of what I want from the bank in terms of financing or advice. So Nedbank really stands for client-centered, client experience, face-to-face, one-on-one time between our clients and our bankers. Right, and that's me. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenny, and thank you everybody for the insight into your respective organizations. So in terms of the panel discussion, and in terms of the point of today's discussion, let's jump right into it. I've got some notes here that I'd like to read to you, just as a bit of background, and then I'll open the floor with the first question. The current pandemic has had a wide economic and social impact, and has put to the test almost every enterprise, including SMMEs and EMEs, which have been brought to the brink of collapse and have been forced to search for new survival strategies and have had to come up with innovative ways of conducting their business operations during extreme economic and social uncertainty and the new crises whose impacts have been hard to predict. Added to the situation is the situation in Ukraine that further caused extreme hikes in various commodities, which make for difficult and interesting times. And that is the reason we are gathered here today, to unpack the effects thereof. I'll open the discussion point to the floor and get some feedback from each of our panelists. The first thing I would like to ask is, what types of trends have you picked up on your respective industries of how businesses have been affected and are responding to COVID-19 while it is currently part of our daily lives? Shaun, perhaps you'd like to have your insights on how COVID has affected us.
I think, I don't really need rocket science to see the real impact of what actually happened over the last 2 to 3 years. And in our industry, we directly saw a major disruption of small to medium enterprises, especially in South Africa. I mean, when we're reading in the media, it's estimated over 55 to 60% of small to medium enterprises suffered severe losses and closures. And as we know, one of the biggest employers, or should be the biggest employers in terms of the job market, should be SMME. So we've lost a lot of jobs at the same time. And I think the worst sector, as we all would know, is that the tourism sector. We had clients that were billing 15 to 20 million rand a year, and for 2 years flat, the income was actually zero, where retrenchments had to take place. It was quite a serious one for many tourism companies, and others as well. As you know, the first part of COVID, the complete lockdowns, so transport, labor was an issue, transport was the issue. The only thing we could access was food at the time. So for 45 days, there was no economic activity except in the sort of food space. And then what we also found is that, you know, people also struggled to access the support that government allocated or wanted to support the distressed businesses. And a couple of issues arose from that. And what we found is that the businesses just sometimes could not understand the compliance of this. We were fortunate enough that we set up a center and a WhatsApp line and an email line to help distressed businesses. And we were quite fortunate that we helped about 800 or 900 businesses access COVID support funding, which was the UIF funding through TERS, the relief fund of 350 Rand, and many other loans from certain banks, business partners, etc., etc. And that we were quite successful. But if you read the media, listen to the talk radios, there was a lot of complaints about people accessing it. And the major problem was compliance. And that's what we found, you know, business accounts and private accounts. People could not access the 350 Rand because of their accounts were all over the place, or some people are unbanked, which was also a problem that we picked up. Well, I'll just start there, then we have a chat around that, Shaun.
Okay. Thank you, Shaun. Interesting. Yes, COVID has been super a challenge to all of us. Lunga, from your side, any comments on COVID and how it's affected, how you see it's affected your side of the business?
Look, I think we share the same sentiments as to the devastating nature of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. But, you know, when you look at the South African economy, you know, even before COVID had hit South Africa or the world, so to speak, you know, we had statistics by the Department of Trade and Industry, which indicated that, there's a large proportion of businesses, or rather small businesses, that fail to succeed. And then in terms of the stats, they indicate that 5 out of 7 of SMMEs fail within their first year. 37% of those survive their first 4 years, and only an astonishing 9% survives 10-year period. So this is basically what has been happening even prior to COVID hitting South Africa, and the difficulty and challenges again of COVID-19 came, which impacted South Africa, which obviously resulted in when you look at the stats, for example, tell you there was a mass retrenchment. Some businesses had to temporarily close down. Unfortunately, others could not open their doors again, which further exacerbated the problem of unemployment, which we know, we had a record high even before COVID, and it further accelerated and went up, So it has been really difficult for businesses. And again, when you look at accessing government support, as well as especially when it comes to the grants and loans that were designed as a relief measures for small businesses, a lot of compliance issues, were laid bare, where we saw that actually small businesses do not really have their books in order, so to speak, when it goes to UIF, when it goes to returns, So it has those reasons, amongst others, then unfortunately meant that a large proportion of them could not access the funds that were made available to them, So that is basically what the situation is.
Thank you, Lunga. Some interesting and quite scary statistics, and thank you for that insight. Vuyokazi, are you there? What impact have you guys experienced from COVID, specifically to you?
Thank you, John. I share the same sentiments with the previous speakers. It has been the same. COVID-19 lockdown not only disrupted the livelihoods of SMMEs, but also had a devastating impact in their lives. And it has a significant, I will speak in present tense now because it's still there, when you see the numbers and all that. It has a significant adverse impact on the South African economy as well as the global economy. And studies have been conducted. The Department of Small Business Development conducted a study around the impact of COVID-19 on SMMEs as well as FinFind. In the survey that was conducted, according to the survey that was conducted by FinFind on SMMEs, on the impact of COVID on SMMEs, it was released in 2020. It shows that the economy slowed down by 16.4%. in the second quarter of 2020 compared to the first quarter, that is prior, the second one. And 42.7% of businesses closed in 2020 due to COVID-19 pandemic as well as lockdown. That 42.7% is based on the sample size that was taken, which was a survey was conducted. Sample size was 15,000 SMMEs across all sectors and in all provinces. And the sectors that were hit hard, obviously, it's tourism and construction industry. Construction, 14.2%, food and beverage. We will recall that the restaurants had closed down in that period. And most businesses that remained open were in Gauteng province, as well as most businesses that closed were also in Gauteng, comparatively speaking, then comparing to the 9 other provinces. And like the previous speakers have clearly put it, the rate of unemployment is high due to the retrenchments during this period. And if people have no disposable income, they spend less, and that impacts directly our SMMEs. And also businesses in the informal sector were also negatively impacted. Most were unable to access any stimulus packages because they could not meet the requirements, because of the compliance issues, and then those who could not adapt then to the environment closed down completely, and they have not have come back into operation. And most businesses then shifted to digitization. Therefore, technology became a very good enabler as people started working from home. The other thing that I mentioned is that I must mention is the disruption in global supply chain. The important goods and businesses ended up losing clients, because they could not receive the goods at that time because everything was shut down. And now, there were those restrictions during hard lockdown, and yeah, it disrupted entirely the supply chains. So that's what was experiences. What was experienced in our sector. Thank you.
Thanks, Vuyokazi, and thanks for your insight. Again, interesting. Jenny, can we move to you?
Yes, sure. From my side, I actually grimaced, Nana, when Shaun was talking about the clients that can't get access to the government funding when President Ramaphosa would speak on a Sunday night and would say he's got this and this is available to SMMEs. I would cringe because I know that it isn't as simple as just giving someone 1,000 Rand, 350 Rand. There's all the compliance that goes with it. And unfortunately, us, the bank, is the one that has to say to the client, sorry, you haven't met criteria X, Y, Z, so you can't get the funding. So the president looks like the hero, and then the bank that can't fulfill on the president's promise from a Sunday night, we just are not right because we can't get it. But anyway, be that as it may, when we were in hard lockdown, there were certain businesses that obviously couldn't trade, like everyone has said already, but they also couldn't sit around and do nothing. I mean, there still had to be an income stream. So the businesses that made it through all the different lockdown levels are the ones that diversified and went into something different. The most popular was the fogging and the sanitizing. So an example would be we've got some carpet cleaning companies, and where they couldn't clean carpets because there wasn't an essential service, they then diversified into doing fogging of businesses and homes. And that has obviously led to a whole different playing field in their business at the moment. So yeah, diversifying companies that did that definitely stayed through lockdowns and are obviously doing an extra bit with their business at the moment. In the banking industry itself, so obviously COVID affected us as well. Obviously not as much because we still worked during lockdown, servicing our clients, helping wherever we could. But we had to, the banking industry as a whole, not just Nedbank, we had to step up very quickly to enhance our digital platforms. I mean, it was almost overnight. The card tapping functionalities. I mean, who can remember tapping their card before 2020? I mean, we knew the functionality was there, but why would we use it if we're used to putting our PINs in? So the card tapping was one of them, the online banking and the app. So making it more user friendly, that the clients don't need to go stand in a queue to get into a branch where they could contract COVID, but do most of the things over the online banking. It was also important that the banks, while upping and improving their digital platforms, also upskill their staff to be more digitally inclined. I mean, I never knew before 2020 how to go and do a digital signature. Now, okay, PDF it, sign it. I don't have to see anybody. You can just sign on the computer. Again, something that was always there, but we took it for granted. Another thing that really, really took off well, I think in Nedbank, obviously, but the banking industry is the e-commerce. So the payment integrations onto clients' websites. So like booking accommodation, the take a lot functions, all of those things. Again, it's always been there. It's a developed platform, but until we couldn't go anywhere and we could only have people come to us and deliver to us, did the uptake of that really take off. So yeah, I feel digitally, and I think Vuyokazi also said it, we've become much better at the digital enhancements in both small businesses and our individual capacities. And I think that is something that's going to definitely still work with us way into the future. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, I think it's quite clear that COVID has had a a serious impact on all our different industries and as in business as a whole. Another question that I want to pose to the panel is what policies and reforms have been or should be put in place to address this type of situation by government? And if not by government, whose responsibility should it be? Shaun?
Yeah, no, thanks, John. We were fortunately enough to be involved in a research document during COVID, because if you look at around the world, in a disaster, they need to have some sort of plan to come out of the disaster. We cannot just willy-nilly run, ad hoc programs to try and get out of it. So we were quite fortunate enough to be part of this plan. And what we found across the world, this research document basically looked at around the world what's happening. Sorry, my mic is giving me some problems here. 1 second. Thanks. Yeah, so around the world, what we found is that different cities obviously took different approaches, but basically the sort of policies that were taken were aligned to providing a lot of relief in the various forms, where it was loans to entrepreneurs with less interest or no interest in some cities. We found people were giving incentives to the heavy hit sectors like the restaurants and other tourism related businesses and other sectors that were hit. That was in Milan, basically. They gave all their restaurants a sort of interest-free loan and like a moratorium on the repayments until they come out of the problems. And then various different countries and cities adopted different strategies in terms of how they changed the city to support sort of the businesses and people in the city. But coming back to home, I think, and in particular to Nelson Mandela Bay, how do we fix everything? It's a tough one. So, in the short term, which I must commend the city, is that they were quite quick to put a short-term, medium-term, and long-term plan in place. And one of the short-term strategies were, apart from providing relief and other sort of tariff cuts, they immediately put up a plan, and they put out like support centers, obviously virtual centers where people could SMS and WhatsApp or email for help and support, which we were part of. Secondly, obviously, then you have to have a medium-term plan. So now, in our view, the country and the economy needs to sort of take a whole re-look at what's going on after COVID. And in my view, a reprioritization of the whole economy. And maybe, we need to diversify the economy and start focusing on certain sunrise sectors coming out of COVID. Now, and especially in Port Elizabeth, we know that the tourism and other industries were heavily hit. I know the city, I think now is providing rebates to raise taxes for B&Bs and other hotel groups, trying to provide incentives for them to get back into normal operations. But in our view, it should be a key focus on tourism, because Nelson Mandela Bay is a tourism attraction or destination. Secondly, what we found is that in our space where we're working, we picked up that exports and imports obviously slowed down due to the borders being blocked, the port being closed, etc., etc. So in our view, food or local production of food and many other key elements in our economy needs to start being made in South Africa. Our manufacturing sector needs to sort of incentivized, and some more incentives to try and provide more people going into manufacturing. I think agriculture is a big space to be playing in now. Also, what we also found is that, we took a drive in the Nelson Mandela Bay surrounding areas, and we found a lot of smallholder farmers actually struggling or almost closing down. And that was before COVID. So I can imagine after COVID, they probably, closed. So in the agricultural space, I think there's two things needs to happen. We need to put a sort of big focus and boost into trying getting the smallholder farmers back on track. And how do we do that? So looking at trying to look at different funding mechanisms to get them back on track. And secondly, what we found is the skills from the smallholder farmers were lacking, the technical ability to manage the what do we call it, like the efficiencies of certain farms. And all these things are quite technical. You know, we can't just give a person land and expect to run an efficient operation if we're not trained. So key thing is like incubation and training for all these the farms. So you need to also put programs in place, especially in the Nelson Mandela Bay and in the surrounding country as well, to help smallholder farmers from a funding point of view and an incubation point of view. And then thirdly, I don't think we can provide all of the stuff, but we need a market. So we need to help these guys get into different markets. Like there's a fresh produce market there in the Nelson Mandela Bay. How do we bring the smallholder farmers and integrate them into the market? And then there's Kucha right there as well. How do we get them to start exporting their fruit and veg? You know, I was in Dubai the other day, last week in fact, and I went to see a colleague of mine from South Africa, and he says, we eat all your best vegetables here, and it's like 3 or 5 times the price of what you'll pay in South Africa. But it is a bit of shortage in all the hot countries, Mauritius, in the northern African countries, the UAE, Abu Dhabi. So they all want our fruit and veg. So there's a big market there. We just need to try and help the guys to get the products over there. And then the other one in Port Elizabeth, I think a big push is to how do we use the ocean or the ocean economy to the best to try and improve economic growth there. And I am led to believe that there is some activities happening there in the Nelson Mandela Bay where the long-term plan is to maybe refocus a lot of infrastructure cost to try and work on the harbour versus Kucha to try and bring more trade and export and to sort of create a better or bigger infrastructure in terms of tourism, building more hotels and then moving some stuff into Kucha and making that the harbour. So those are sort of the long-term things that I read about that the city is considering, which is great from a policy point of view. So the question John asked is about policy. So I think policy should be led by the government, but with a key partnership with the private sector and other stakeholders like labor and civil society as well before formulating and implementing the policy, because the key to all policies is proper implementation, and who are the implementation partners is important. So hence when you're developing this policy, the key to it is to work with the stakeholders, which is business, labor and civil society and government leading the process, in my personal opinion.
Thank you, Shaun. Yeah, that's thank you for addressing the subject of, you know, what government role should be at a time like this. Lunga, any thoughts on government's role and the responsibility of government thereof?
All right. No, I 100% agree. The government's role is to create an enabling environment so that businesses are able to trade and sell their goods and services. Right. Now, just to briefly touch on what was said, if you go around Nelson Mandela Bay, for example, you're going to find a situation where certain businesses or other businesses are relocating away from certain areas because of a range of issues, which basically mean that certain areas are not conducive to do business in. There's lack of refuse removal, there is sewage spillages, which so all of those such issues that are not really addressed by the local municipality, are driving businesses or business away from certain locations, which obviously means there would be jobs lost and lower economic activity in those particular places. Secondly, would be enterprise development. If you interact with businesses and if you read research around enterprise development, you're going to find that a large proportion of businesses actually do participate in various enterprise development initiatives, which come back to a report that there is a skills mismatch between what is being offered by enterprise development programs and what challenges businesses actually face. So a business will go through that particular program but come out of it still lacking certain information or skills, so to speak, which also talks to the issue of compliance, where businesses are not really complying in terms of what they need to do. And if you check these businesses, you're going to find that some of them have actually participated in an enterprise development in one way or the other. So we need to find a framework, so to speak, that basically looks into how institutions, both private as well as public, how these programs are to be delivered. And then it also monitoring and evaluation, because as you would know, in South Africa, we do not lack policies. We do not lack legislation that governs how businesses must benefit or be developed, but there is a certain level of lack of monitoring and evaluation to ensure that these are actually implemented. If you look, for example, there's when you look at the issue of the 30 days pay of small businesses, whilst we do have such a policy in place, but if you go around, you're going to still see that those problems do still persist. And then I worked with one other organization as well, where we found that when it comes to the grant that they have on offer, they couldn't really indicate the turnaround time as to when they will respond to a business or an application. And there are applications or applicants that have been on the pipeline since September last year, who are still waiting for that type of assistance. So, those kind of monitoring and evaluation needs then to be in place. And then, pardon me, the driving awareness of the programs that institutions like your CEDA and your ECDCs are driving. Because again, if you go to certain locations and you interact with businesses, you will find that a lot of them do not know what services are on offer, which, if they were to be able to hop on and apply for, they will definitely be able to grow and sustain their businesses.
Thank you, Lunga. Vuyokazi, your thoughts on the role and responsibilities in terms of government?
Thank you, John. Perhaps if I can start with the end in mind, that of building the economy, supporting SMMEs to be sustainable and be able to create employment opportunities, as that would lead to a robust economy of the country as a whole and reduce poverty levels. The Provincial Recovery Plan, I must say that it is based on, amongst others, public finance, digitization, sector support, and sector support mainly focusing on certain sectors, for example, the oceans economy, manufacturing, tourism, agro-industry, automotive industry, as well as sustainable energy, and also transformative small business support. That's the focus, not to say that other sectors are being excluded. And also the Eastern Cape government set aside funds to support companies that were hard hit by COVID-19, thereby introducing a number of programs that are currently being implemented by the Eastern Cape Development Corporation. Amongst those, we have the Job Stimulus Fund, which is targeting companies that are in distress due to COVID-19 pandemic as well as the lockdown. That's mainly for job retention so that there aren't any further retrenchments in those companies. So it's 10,000 per job retained that we give out to those eligible enterprises with a minimum of 5 jobs. That is, if for you to preserve 5 jobs, you get 10 per job, which would be then 50,000 jobs, plus a working capital for businesses that generate a turnover up to 20 million per annum. And these businesses should be registered business and also businesses that have registered their employees with the UIF, as well as they should have financial statements. They should also have bank statements. The other program that we have is the informal business support program. Earlier, I mentioned that one of our focus is on informal businesses. You know, we try and get them to formalize them, because you know, we SMMEs, we know that they are this is one sector that creates jobs. So with the informal business support, we aim at providing support to them, that is the informal traders, so that they can become formal, and also this targeted about 1,000 informal business across the Eastern Cape province in various sectors, e.g. your manufacturing, your service sector, agro-processing, automotive aftermarket scheme, clothing and textile. And but unfortunately now we have not dispersed yet, because one would say I have applied but I have not received what I requested. It's because the program has been put on hold, or that part actually of disbursement, due to the Constitutional Court judgment that was issued on the 16th of February 2022 on the matter regarding the 2017 preferential procurement regulations. The other package that we have is Imvaba Cooperative Fund, that is targeting cooperatives in the Eastern Cape, and also the DDIT, which is the Department of Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism. They run it, they implement it themselves, which is they call LRED program, assisting entrepreneurs to create new economic opportunities. So those were the I would say reforms assistance that was given by government, and it still continues. But my recommendation basically is we must, as ECDC and other government basically, focus on the formalization of informal business. I know we have started doing that, noting though the current challenge, which is the perception that formalization of businesses comes with increased tax and regulatory burdens. So government actually needs to work around that, because people, they say, I would rather run the informal one because there's so much red tape, there's so much that is required when you have actually formalized your business. And also we need a coordinated approach to service delivery, remove barriers and creating conducive business environment for SMMEs, and also collaborate with ecosystem partners and not work in silos. You know, as government departments, we can sit down, and agencies, even with private sector also, you know, we include private sector, we work together, because at the same time, I mean, because we are working towards achieving a common goal. And we started intensifying efforts around promoting innovation, encouraging SMMEs to diversify and expanding their product base as well. And one of the recommendations also would be that government should impose an expansionary fiscal policy, you know, tax cuts, rebates, increased government spending on projects such as infrastructure improvement. You know, reducing taxes would ease, I believe, the way of doing business with SMMEs or around the SMMEs. Thank you.
Thank you, Vuyokazi, and thank you for your insight, Jenny. In terms of government and the responsibility from Nedbank side, any comments?
Yeah. So I feel from my side, the word sustainable is very important. So we're giving out all these grants and funds and saying we've got all this available for SMMEs, be them 20 million and under turnover. But what we're forgetting is the sustainability of that business. We give someone that's just started out or just battled through COVID 10, 20, 30,000 Rand, and I don't know if there's any stringent follow-up to understand how the business is using that money. Do they know what to do with the money? Because it's easy for you and I to say, give me 10,000 Rand and I know how to plug a hole, close and make that more. But when it comes to small businesses that haven't had that exposure, they've got this brilliant idea, this is what they're wanting to do, but they don't know how to use the money to create more money or create more opportunities. So what is the government doing around the sustainability of the businesses to move forward and grow bigger? My child is now in grade 7 and he's learning EMS, it's Economic Management Sciences, and they've also in their stuff they've said it's informal businesses. One of the disadvantages of having an informal business is the fact that those owners aren't necessarily skilled. So they don't know how to make their business formal, like Vuyokazi has just said. We're trying to make businesses formal, but the owners don't necessarily have that skill and know-how of how to do that. So I know the business place with Grant and Nedbank, myself, in my previous role, we did where I would sit at the business place offices for a day or two during the week and have businesses come in, and because they want to open accounts, because they need to apply for tenders and they need to open accounts. But everything else, the whole conversation around not even opening the account as yet is, why do you want an account? What is your business about? What does your credit scoring look like? Let's just start there. Because if your credit scoring in your personal capacity is not great, there's no way you're going to get funding, financing, or anything from anyone if that's not correct. So it's the simple things, the back to basics, and that is what I'm saying. The word should be sustainable. How are we going to keep these SMMEs sustainable throughout their process of granting funding and all that? And that's where the business place, and I know I don't work for the business place, but I've been involved with them for quite a number of years, where it is great. The businesses come into them, they mentor them, they help them through the different stages. They show them this is what a cash flow looks like. This is what financials is. This is who can do it. This is who can register your business. And I think that advice part needs to come through a lot more from the government departments in order to make sure that the businesses have the right foundation in order to move forward and move upwards in their respective business industries. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and thanks for your thoughts on that. The last and final question I would like to open to the panelists is around the situation in Ukraine. Given the situation as it currently stands in Ukraine, what have been your respective observations on how this has impacted on normal business operations and the business environment, and what can be done to address the situation that is currently being experienced? Again, in the same order, I would like to pose the question around Ukraine to Shaun and get his thoughts on that specifically.
Okay, so our observation is that I'm sure we've all seen in the media and in the newspapers the major increase in fuel prices, which is a direct negative impact to businesses, ourselves, as well as individuals. With a high fuel price, obviously everything goes up, as we know. So there's a major problem in fuel supply, since a lot of oil comes from the Ukraine and Russia and so forth. So it's obviously creating a big negative impact on the economy from a transport point of view. People going to work now are going to find themselves obviously paying extra in the taxis, and petrol in the cars has extreme impact, in fact, directly in people's pockets. Secondly, obviously, we see the major problem with food supplies, maize, wheat. The imports have declined and the pricing now is like increased. Now, with that, you'll see like a value change, sort of negative impact on the value chains, because if wheat and maize the supply is hindered to such a big extent. You get your guys like your Tiger brands that are manufacturing food, our cereals and breads, basically everything gets negatively impacted. The whole value chain of the food side is being negatively impacted. If you look at one of the comments I read on paper in Parliament on this war and how it's impacting on our economy, there was some research showing that there's 77 billion rand with the South African business interest in Russia alone. And obviously it's a huge risk. And if you look at the other countries around the world and other big businesses, they're pulling out of Russia with all the sanctions and stuff like that. So if our country and our businesses have 77 billion rand of interest in that particular country alone, we face a major issue there as well. But I think the main impact, for me, we saw a lot of companies now as well. We helped a company recently in the fuel space, and the levy imposed on fuel has also messed up the small to medium wholesalers, in fact, as well, in terms of supply of fuel. I think those are the three major areas, and a part of us taking a very neutral view in Parliament. I think as a South African, we're all kind of scared. We don't want to fight with the Russians or the Ukraine, so it's a bit of sensitive stuff there on the individuals in South Africa as well. Right, Shaun.
Thank you, Shaun. Thank you, Shaun. Lunga, can we get your thoughts on the situation in Ukraine and the impact that it has? What you guys have seen?
Yeah, look, Shaun has perfectly summed it up as to what the spillover effects have been. Look, countries trade because of a various reasons. That would include specialization, where it's cheaper to produce a certain good from a foreign country than you would have domestically, where natural resources, when we look at the Russian situation, for example, which Shaun has indicated, it is unfortunately impacted the prices of fuel, which obviously then would impact the prices of, supply chain. And unfortunately, we know that businesses would then, push over that burden to the final consumer, in South African economy that is, under stressed already, So the prices of wheat as well, as Shaun has correctly said, South Africa, between Ukraine and Russia, we import about 30% of our wheat. So when it comes to flour, when it comes to the bread prices, those will definitely, increase. So the price, what happens in these countries then affects the prices of doing businesses domestically, which unfortunately it's not a situation anyone would want to, find. So in terms of what is actually happening there, that's how, in terms of our observation, it has impacted our local economy.
Thank you very much, Lunga, and thank you for your insight. Vuyokazi, your thoughts on Ukraine and what's happening there and how it impacts us directly here?
Thank you, John. John, I share the same sentiments as the previous speakers. Inflation has gone up high, general increase in prices, food prices going up, fuel prices going up, and we are expecting another steep increase of fuel price anytime, because it just comes up, it goes up any given point in time. And currently the inflation is sitting at 5.9%, and not, I think it was last week when we got also the announcement from the Reserve Bank upping the increase also in interest rate, which is another factor that is hitting not only the SMMEs but everybody. Because imagine a business that acquired a loan in 2000 to purchase a vehicle, and just before the vehicle is in use, there comes COVID-19, and for some time he or she was not using the vehicle. And now when we are saying, yes, we are up, we're going back to normal in inverted commas, then comes the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and the interest in terms of repayment of that loan is going up. So yeah, no, it's not easy. And also the unemployment as well, retrenchments. We've just seen the number of retrenchments. I hear again, the post office also, they are retrenching, or they will be retrenching, or they are in a process of doing that. And where does it put us as a country? It's quite concerning. And John, it takes me back to what happened in 2008, 2009, when the country was in recession, the economic meltdown. It was not only the country, but the entire world. So yeah, it's not easy. It's difficult, I must say. We experiencing it's high inflation, high employment. The rise in the interest rates is just the last nail in the coffin. Yeah, I think private sector involvement is key at this point in time, and also SOEs, they need to be innovative and support farmers as well, so that we can focus in on localization. We do our own stuff. If we're talking oil, if we're saying they are locked in Ukraine, this is locked in Russia. Why? Because we've got land. If it's climate, we can always, there's technology now. Technology does wonders. That's what I believe in. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Vuyokazi. Jenny, from you guys at Nedbank, your experience of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine?
So a couple of months ago, you wouldn't even have thought that the Ukraine would have such a big effect on South Africa, even the whole world. So it's actually quite frustrating that you got COVID, you've got the Ukraine thing going on, you've now got all these new infections happening between the kids, and now with Nelson Mandela Bay as well, you've got the water shortage that's happening very soon. I mean, I think in this day and age, if you are not resilient enough as an individual like us earning salaries, or in a business, you won't unfortunately make it. You have to have that positive mindset. You have to have that change mindset. That ongoing change is going to happen. And I think in Nedbank itself as well, change is constant. So you've got to just be able to adapt to the changes and everything that affects us. I mean, it's like Vuyokazi said, we've got the land. Why on earth are we importing wheat from Ukraine if we've got the land? It just needs to be developed. We need to reinvest in our farmers, upskill up and coming farmers, the workers that are on the farm that can do the job. So take the land, upskill the farmers, and let's do our own, grow our own wheat. We can then export it to other countries that are also battling like us with the wheat and all that kind of stuff. I think a factor that no one's mentioned, and I think for a female that's in the kitchen quite a lot, is oil. I mean, oil in 2017, oil cost 32 Rand for 2 liters. And we're looking now, it's 104 Rand for 2 liters. And in a month or two's time, it's going to be 120 Rand for a 2 liter of oil. I mean, if that is what's happening there, what do you think is going to happen with the petrol price? I mean, it's just going into wherever. But again, there's nothing we can do about that. It's happening. It's happened. The way that we react to it and the way that we change our circumstances is what's going to make us either go out and close our businesses down or move forward with the change that we've made. So I think the mindset is a very important thing to have right now in order to move forward and make a success of what you're doing. Thanks.
Thank you, panelists. That's pretty much all the questions and the topics I wanted to cover in terms of this first panel discussion. We will have a few questions from the public, which I'll read out. Panelists, you should be able to see your question box there. We have published a few questions. Yes, so thank you for your thoughts on COVID. Thank you for your thoughts on what government and government's responsibility should be in terms of a situation like this. And thank you for your thoughts on the situation, the current situation in Ukraine. I'd like to now move on to some questions. The first question I will read out for Shaun. I'd like to address a question by Jonathan Blake. Where can we access funding for business relief, and what do we need to bring along to qualify? Shaun, could you give us a bit of insight in terms of that question about business funding and what is needed in order to qualify?
Okay, so there's various different institutions that are providing support for small businesses that need relief. You can read up, but I know, for example, like all the development corporations across the country, most of the banks. So, for example, we helped a couple of businesses recently with business partners, very sort of nice rates. In some instances, like even like 0 to 1%. You know, so the business partners, there's stuff at IDC, DVSA, CIFA, and so forth. So there's a lot of relief. What I can suggest, you can go onto our website as well, and try and contact our numbers there, and then we'll try and help you if you need direct support of where to go and where you're based, etc., what industry you're in. So every industry also has various different programs that certain industry partners are basically trying to assist. So, for example, tourism, you know, all this huge incentives basically to try and revitalize the tourism sector from the Department of Small Business as well. Usually what's required is your compliance documents, and in some instances they want to see the level of the stress the business is, so you need financial statements and in most instances your bank statements to prove that you are in distress. And so your compliance documents that is mainly required is your tax clearance certificates, your CIPC documents, proof of the directors, your bank statements, in most instances audited financial statements or management accounts, you know, depending on the funder. But that's generally what's, you know, and sometimes your company profile, background to your business, and the extent to where you find your problems in your business. Hope that answered the question. If you need any further assistance, you can feel free to go to our website. It's the business place, or you could go to Emerge-Group, where our funding elements and arm basically gets managed.
Thank you, Shaun. Thanks for that insight. Another question I would like perhaps Jenny to answer. Jenny, do you see the very first question from Mandela, Gubula there? Do you see that?
I do, yes.
Would you mind answering that question? I think perhaps in terms of your industry, you might be able to give a bit of insight there.
Yeah, let me have a read. It's a very, very long question, Mandela.
Sorry.
Okay, so if we look, let me just put my camera on. So innovations are just considered with regards to empowering the arts and natural environments as a tool for structuring particular. Goodness gracious. So offerings is name or training program. All right, so what we have at Nedbank is we've got a website called Simply Biz. All right, so Simply Biz is like a Facebook for business where you don't have to bank at Nedbank. You can be from you don't have to have a bank account. You can bank at apps, Standard Bank, doesn't really matter. And what it is you interact with other businesses, you market yourself, you advertise your business, you can find out about new training, things that come up. Nedbank is very much, although we want everyone to bank with us and have the main share of the market share, we also try and train as many. Oh, can you guys hear me still?
Yeah.
And I'm off.
Yes, we can hear you still.
Perhaps, John, if I may come in while we're waiting for Jenny, if that's okay with you.
Yes, sure, please do.
Yes, she asked a question. Anyway, it was a rhetorical question, Jenny, you know, about stating that sustainability is one big word, and that's what she would like to see in place we're giving out these funds, but what next then in terms of sustainability? In my introduction earlier, you will recall, oh, sorry, my camera is off.
No problem.
Yeah. In my presentation earlier, you will recall that I touched on the strategic intent of ECDC, and particularly the goals, stating that one of our goals is to have a competitive and sustainable SMME sector that contributes to the socio-economic development of the province. So sustainability is key to ECDC, and besides, remember, we need to report. We've got a mandate and we are funded. We've got a shareholder and stakeholders that we need to report to. So apart from being a development finance institute, we're also having a unit called business support. It's actually development finance and business support. And the business support arm offers purely the non-financial support and services to SMMEs in terms of mentorship. We don't just disperse and not follow up, and even the disbursements that we make, it's made in tranches, and then we will receive reports. So we have mentorship, we have capacity building, we have noting that our SMMEs, they've got a challenge with access to markets as well. We do have a programs around product development so that we assist you with the product, and then if you want to export, we've got export development program, we've got enterprise. So what I'm trying to say, it's not irresponsible funding. We follow up and we ensure that whoever that is funded is eligible for the funding. So I needed just to respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your comments. There's another question here that I would please like to pose to Lunga. It's the question from Adrian Pinar. What opportunities are there for SMMEs to recover? For those of us who have had to close our doors and lay off staff, it has been difficult to recover. So in terms of your thoughts on recovery, Lunga?
Pardon me. So just to touch on that and how they can actually access support from the business chamber, as I indicated in my introduction, that we have the SMME and entrepreneurship desk, which has 6 pillars of support. A business is able to get advisory support, for example, from one of our pro bono service providers, which would include LabourNet, which would include, pardon me, Oracle Media, and so on. So they are able to access on an individual basis. They are able to sit down with an expert who can then be able to provide advice as to how they can navigate. As I did indicate as well, we do have assistance when it comes to funding through our pro bono service providers, which include Standard Bank, so they are able to go into our website and get in touch with us, and then we'll be able to link them with a dedicated personnel from one of the pro bono service providers of the desk. And Mrs. Vuyokazi did just touch on the enterprise development and the EC exporter development programs, which we work hand in hand with them. We have experienced institutions that are driving or facilitating those programs with us, including the cognitive skills development as well as mentoring, which then also open access to market, for those institutions that would want to, explore foreign markets to sell their products or services. So we do have a quite robust and comprehensive support in place. Businesses can then go into our website to find out more how can they access those.
Thank you very much, Lunga, and thanks for your comments. 2 things quickly here. One, I just see that we've got Rodney from Innovation Hub. Good morning, panelists. We have an ecosystem available who will simply, probably I think means simplify the understanding of compliance and how to access business opportunities. We are based in Nelson Mandela Bay Innovation Hub. Thank you for that comment. We will share that information and I will be in touch with you. Lunga, I see the last question there. Someone's tagged you there that says, have you considered a social upliftment project? Would you like to address that, if you don't mind?
All right. Yeah, I'm just going to that question so that I can see what it said. All right. So I did indicate in my introduction when I spoke about the various elements of the chamber. We do have task teams who are basically there to guard against and ensure when it comes to natural resources, when it comes to security and justice, so we do have I think there are 3 of them, I just don't have it in front of me now, that are there to actually guard against and ensure that there is social upliftment and there is safety and security, for example, within the Nelson Mandela Bay. As I said, whoever is interested in such as again can then go into our website where the information will be there and how they can participate and benefit from these programs.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your answer. At this point, I see that Jenny is back with us. Jenny, any further comments from your side in terms of our conversation as a whole? And then after I've been to you, Jenny, I'll go to Shaun. As obviously it's a business place initiative, this panelist discussion, just for a few words from him, and then we'll close. Anything from you, Jenny, further?
Yeah, sorry, also had some connectivity issues.
No problem at all.
So for me, I've put some comments in the question and answer box. So some links for the business owners that can go onto and have a look there, what everything Nedbank has to offer. And it's not just about Nedbank, it's guidance on how to register a business, how to draw up financials. What do the banks look at in financial statements in order to assess your application? And I think that's very important because Shaun mentioned you need to have financials, management accounts, and so forth. But as a business owner, yes, you've got an accountant that does the draws up the financials for you. But unless you understand your financial statements in terms of, is it liquid? Is it well geared? Is it profitable? You are not going to know what's going on in your business. And yes, you can say to yourself, but I am a professional architect. I don't know about money. I don't know about financial statements, but there's got to be a point of, even if it's the dummy's guide to financials, you need to, as the business owner, know that, because it's your responsibility at the end of the day to know, did I pay the right tax? Did I do this? Is my VAT there? Is my creditors paid up to date? Are there any of my clients that still owe me money? So yeah, so please go ahead and look on our website. I've put a couple of links there for how you can get there. Really, really important and that's what I was talking about earlier, is the sustainability part of it. So it doesn't matter where you bank. For me, it's about how sustainable is your business, and included in that is how much do you understand your business as the owner of your business. So yeah, it was very nice for me to hear from ECDC and the business chamber, I must say. I do know the business place for a couple of years. So yeah, I think we work quite closely with each other in any case. I mean, they work with the banks, we work with them. So yeah, looking forward to a lot more interactions. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And thank you for that information posted or sent through to us in the chat box. I will compile that information and send it out to anybody that needs it, and anyone can get in contact with me. Finally, what I would like to do is I'd like to go to Shaun. Obviously, this panel discussion is an initiative by the Business Place. I just would like to understand any further comments that Shaun may have in terms of, what outside influencing factors there are on SMME growth and sustainability in the country, and just any final thoughts perhaps from Shaun. Maybe he can give us most important thing to remember or something like that. Shaun?
Thanks, John. Firstly, I want to also take this opportunity. I think it's important to understand what our intentions are here. And as I said earlier, like we're all working in our own institutions, and in some cases we're working in silos. So the main sort of plan here is to try and work together with all our partners of similar entities that are in the development space, in the social upliftment space, and obviously we need a lot of support from big business and government as well. But I think the main intention of today is to start the conversation and how we can partner with most people in the Nelson Mandela Bay and trying in like a seamless sort of relationship, how we can best benefit the people from the business world in the Nelson Mandela Bay. I think that's the main sort of focus to start. And as you can see, the questions coming out and the interest from the public, it's much needed for us to put what's we're all doing out there. How does entrepreneurs benefit from what we're trying to do, and all the support that's available. So I think that's the main critical part of this whole session, and we intend to try and put more stuff out there and try and create a more awareness around what's happening and what support's available, what's the issues, what's the challenges, and we will invite like-minded individuals like the panelists as well to come to others and so forth. So I'll also take this opportunity to thank Lunga from the Business Chamber. It's important to understand what the chambers are doing and the challenges and the important sort of strategies they've got in place as well, and how we all can work together. Vuyokazi, thanks to you as well. It's great to actually hear what you guys are doing at the ECDC, and maybe we can consider a chat later to see how we can partner better in terms of a pipeline for both all the sort of pipeline partners, how we can sort of put a seamless partnership in place. And then to Jenny, thanks a lot for availing yourself, and it's quite important to hear what the banks are doing as well. So thank you to the panelist. I think from the closing point of view, John, I think, that we are in a bit of steep economic crisis, poverty that's its highest. We had COVID, the war, but as Jenny said, it is what it is, and we have to try and change our circumstances to benefit our country and so forth. So, so thanks.
Thank you, Shaun, and thank you for the words of wisdom. Thank you to all of our panelists, Lunga, Vuyokazi, Jenny. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your insight. It's been very interesting. We will have another panel discussion not too far from now. Everyone on here will be notified of that, and perhaps again, as Shaun intimated, it's just the start of a conversation, and there will be a whole different bunch of topics that we would like to discuss in an effort to, for growth and sustainability in general. This meeting will be available on YouTube in the coming days for post-live distribution. So please, guys, share far and wide. Let's see if we can't get some traction and get different topics of discussion out and start lines of communication and out the box thinking. So thank you for your time, everybody. Thank you, panelists. And from us at the Business Place, we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.